Hey you, and welcome to the Golden Twig Nomination Podcast. In this episode, we will be talking about who we nominate to get the coveted Golden Twig Award. And it's a real physical reward for the companies who want to receive it. Now, traditionally, not every company wanted to receive. You'll understand when you hear the categories, but some have, and we've had great award ceremonies. Anyways, this is a nomination show. You actually decide who wins this coveted, beautiful trophy. So go into the description of this podcast and cast your vote. You can cast on one category, two categories, or all 10 categories. And remember, it's your vote that matters. And most importantly, remember, this is for laughs, for the LOLs. We're about fun. So enjoy the episode, enjoy the podcast, and remember to cast your vote.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deconstructor of Fun This Week in Games number 315, where we give our game industry insider takes on the top gaming news stories of each week. But today, we're going to do our special Golden Twig award show. Well, actually, it's a bit more of the nomination show where we talk through all of the different nominees that we have for our own version of what was hot and not for 2024. So, hi, everyone. I'm Jen Donahoe. I am the marketing and publishing person in the RPG that we call TWIG. So today we have...
Philip Black, economy, monetization of the sorts. Ready for a Squad Busters pounding?
Oh my God.
Eric Kress, strategy and investing.
Richard Katkov, founding, VC, all that nonsense.
Oh, God. Okay, Mishka. Founder whisperer. Okay, got it. So we are going to skip our normal, it's 2 episodes in a row of us skipping our normal thing that we're doing. But did you need to shill anything? Mishka, I know we're coming up on PGC London.
A quick shill. I'm not even prepared for the show. We had 2 different podcasts. I think, by the way, the last podcast you guys did was really good. Like Kress telling about his daughter, and then her listening in a room next door. That was really fun. That was a great episode. You broke character, Kress.
It's back to the old, right? From now on, believe me.
Grumpy Kress is back. That's awesome.
Then we had an episode with Mission 1. We had, again, Executive Headhunter back on the last episode of last year, kind of talking about potential career moves as the year changes. What else did we have on the podcast? I know we published today the audit of the predictions that me and Kress did in Istanbul last year. So there was 6 predictions made. We got 4 on the money. 1 was half, which was Kress's prediction, and 1 was absolutely wrong, which was my prediction. You can go on the blog and check out who got it right, who got it wrong. And there's a lot of custom graphs that Sensor Tower made for us. So a lot of cool stuff on what we got right, what we got wrong. And more predictions will be coming in subsequent weeks. We have multiple people writing them. We got marketing predictions, we got M&A predictions, we got app predictions, but of course we're going to start off with games next week. And awesome. Yes, PGC, we have 2 events. The Supper Club is full, but you can apply. We'll see what we can do. And then there's going to be the mixer. It's called PGC After the Dark. I'm going to post the sign-up link to the newsletter. So see you there.
Okay, awesome. I know that we are also working on supper clubs in LA in February. We're working on one. So hopefully we're going to have more of those.
Yes, there's one. And then, of course, there's going to be a supper club at GDC. We just confirmed with the biggest sponsor today. So that's going to move forward. And there's going to be a women's in gaming thing at GDC. Jen, you don't know, but you're already being selected to drive that. So we have a bunch of different events that will be happening at GDC. We'll talk about that after PGC.
All right, awesome. All right, that's coming. All right, so the Golden Twig Awards. So here we are. So this is our version of our 2024 recap. We have our own categories and our way of examining things, true to form for us. We try to make this unique and different from all of the other wrap-ups. And plus, we also waited to do it and I like to cheat and read everyone else's so that we can do something different. So we have 10 categories. And the way that we're going to work this is I'm going to start off with what was the winner in 2023, right? Because we're doing the 2024 winners. And then we are going to each give our take on what we think the nominee or the winner should be for 2024. And then what we're going to do is put out a survey. We did this last year as well, where we put out each of the categories, each of the nominees, and then we let you, the audience, vote on what you think the actual winner is. We'll do a podcast. We'll come back and we'll talk about each of those winners. Cool? Makes sense, everyone? All right.
Yep. Attention marketers, are you ready for an event that will supercharge your strategies and leave you talking it for months to come? On January 28th in San Francisco, AppsFlyer's Mama takes center stage as the must-attend event for marketers tackling the industry's toughest challenges, from privacy restrictions and signal loss issues to measuring omni-channel ROI and boosting LTV for high-value users. You'll gain actionable insights from the brightest minds in marketing. But Mama isn't just about learning. It's about connecting, sharing, and experiencing. It's an event people rave about for months before and after, and for good reasons. Side note, I've attended one of these events. It's goddamn amazing. Anyways, spaces are filling fast, so don't miss your chances to be part of this unforgettable day in January on 28th. Register now at appsflyer.com/mama, M-A-M-A. That's appsflyer.com/MAMA. Kick-ass live ops need kick-ass tools. That's where Heroic Labs comes in. They just released a massive update to their Satori live ops platform. And having done my research, I can say with confidence that it's second to none. In a single product, you get everything you need, including event capture, player segmentation, feature flags, remote configuration, A/B testing, experimentation, live events calendar, messaging, retention grafing, analytics, and so much more. If you're serious about running live services in a game, get serious about the tools you use. Connect with Heroic Labs and make some serious cheese with your live ops.
Here we go. Topic number 1. This is the topic of the year. So this was the biggest news story or trend. The 2023 winner was the Unity runtime fee. That was so much fun. I felt like a journalist during that time. Each of us were going to go through and give our nominee with a little bit of color. So Phil, why don't you go first? What's yours?
I think obviously we have to give this to Steam. And right now we're looking at Steam peak users online for each year. 2024, they hit an all-time high of 39.3 million peak users online. That is up from 33.6 million from 2023. In terms of revenue, they're up even more. And we're looking at Video Game Insights.
By the way, where the fuck is this revenue coming from? There's no revenue estimates for Steam out there.
So Steam does. So first of all, it does not include MTX to the best of my knowledge. We're looking at Video Game Insights right now. So we're looking at box copies. And remember, they do ordinal ranking like they do on the App Store. So you know if something is...
So they're triangulating based... Okay, I gotcha.
Based on rank. And of course, like that comes with all the normal caveats that...
Yeah, that is absolute bullshit, by the way. Because they're not getting any actual data, I'm sure, from this. So, okay, fine.
So that being said, Steam is up. We can at least look at active users, which is reported by Steam itself. It's a first-party platform reporting, and like that is up 17% year over year. And of course, we know that's driven by China, but I feel like it's been a huge narrative beat this year. It seems like every time there's a new game drop, regardless of whether or not it retains and makes a big slash to begin with, Steam is in a really good place. Congratulations to them. I think it is the story of the year for sure.
Good story. I know that they had a lot of records. Mishka, what's yours?
To me, it has to be the layoffs. Like, we even had a specific category for it on TWIG where we're talking about every week, like who fires the most almost. Like it was sad and crazy. It was just, looking at the numbers, 2023, which is when the layoffs started, we had over 10,000, I think 10.5 thousand jobs were lost in gaming. And then 2024 rolls in and we go to 14,600 jobs lost during the year. So a little bit more, but we also didn't talk about, like, what those numbers don't reveal is the startups that didn't get funding, the people who took on packages and kind of left on their own, and all of that. So I think this accumulated talk about layoffs would be my vote for the topic of the year. Like 2024 was the year of the layoffs. That's how I would see it.
Got it. Chris.
All right. I will kind of throw my hat in the ring, although I think Mishka is probably on the right track. The big tech failures. So again, big tech continues to fail in gaming in epic and ridiculous ways. And this includes both Microsoft and Netflix, who are kind of retrenching and trying to figure out what their strategy is. And it's completely haphazard and nonsensical because big tech doesn't know fuck all about video games, and they don't know how to make video games or do video games. And their incentives and their priorities are different from video games. And that has been the case for the last 25 years since I've been in this business, and nothing has changed. So we'll see if they can pull their head out of their collective asses and get their shit going in 2025. But my gut tells me no. So there we go.
Got it. I think Netflix is going to reappear a lot in our conversation today. So I hear you on that one. Adam, I think, voted layoffs in addition to you, Mishka. And I'm going to be rather boring and also agree with you. I pulled some stats as you did. We have an estimated, 14,600 game industry layoffs in 2024. That was up from the 10,000 in 2023. Where I want to extend this and maybe make it a little bit different is the closure and the hit to game industry media. So after many, many years, Game Informer closed. I think they had a 33-year run. So they closed in August. And then there was another really popular magazine in the UK called Play Magazine. They were around for almost 30 years as well. So those two major layoffs at GameIndustry.biz. I know that we read those guys a lot. A lot of the staff were let go from GameIndustry.biz. So
isn't that completely shut down? Like there's one person left?
Well,
you sure?
It's not shut down, but yes, it's like gonna limp along.
It's the lawyer. he's there.
It is gonna limp along. And I listened to the last podcast that the guys did, and it's just sad because they've been in gaming for 15 years.
It was a good podcast. I listen to it all the time, and they've been doing it together for a long, long time too. So yeah, my understanding is that it's completely done. So I guess we'll maybe get clarity later.
Yeah, so we'll see. So I guess my extension on layoffs is the hit to the game industry media.
I don't know if that's fair, though. When it comes to layoffs, Matthew Ball has been reporting the record layoffs. I mean, the industry's grown. So if you just look at a nominal number, we don't know as a share if layoffs have accelerated. We don't know what the hiring is like. And that's frustrated me in all of these conversations. And I would say the same with media. I don't think media is laid off. I just think it's changed. It's YouTube. It's the fall of the estate. The state is now, it's the fourth estate. It's YouTubers, it's influencers on Twitch. Like it's just changed its form. We can cry, we can shed a tear for nostalgia. I'm totally on board with that, but I don't think it's shrunk, a size of GDP. It's just changed its form.
Yeah, that was funny because that's exactly what I was looking up. Like, what is the employee count of gaming? I think these
it's shit data. It's hard to find.
Yeah, it's hard. And so first of all, I don't think 14,600 is all that significant on a relative basis to the number of people in the space. And then to your point, people are hiring probably more than this amount of people. Like if you look at the job recs right now, I bet it's much higher than 14,600, right? So this is a shifting, right? And as I said before in the podcast, ultimately when things go down, like when there's corrections in the market, generally speaking, this is the time for people to do layoffs without getting negative consequences to the stock and the shareholders. And so companies just kind of cut things that they want to cut, and they can do it without upsetting their shareholder base because this is the time. So anyway, it is a reshuffling as opposed to job losses, as Philip is suggesting.
I think you're right. And I think on the media side, you're right, Phil, that there is a realignment of folks maybe not at traditional media sources as much as going into different. I mean, there's a lot of, folks that are doing like Substack.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah. And so I subscribe to many of them.
And for the
too.
record, dude, Game Informer is a fucking magazine of all fucking things. Like, who the fuck reads magazines anymore? Like, it's obscene. Like, I mean, it was a great magazine. Don't get me wrong. I fucking love that thing. But like, it is a magazine. There's
I know. Yeah.
Are not a thing. Take it from the old guy.
Yeah. And how do you transition into today's world? And I think that's the challenge that a lot of people are having is like, what's today's world of that? All right. Number 2. So this is the category called correction of the year. And so this category is what did we as your industry insider experts fuck up and get wrong in a really, really, really big way? The winner from 2023 was, this was Cress. Microsoft won't acquire Activision. That was what we had to correct because that actually did go through and happen. So for this year, for 2024, what do we think is the correction? What did we mess up in a big way, Phil? What did you mess up in a big way?
Why are you talking to me specifically, Jeff? maybe some unanimity on this nomination. I'm going to be more specific. It's not just Squad Busters that got wrong. I think everyone knew when the game was coming out that it had some challenges in terms of the core gameplay design. Maybe it was coming out too soon. I thought what would really happen is that Squad Busters would become Supercell's most downloaded game. Obviously not within the year, but on a day since launch basis, just due to the fact that this was supposed to be the superpower of the game, bringing together all this IP that Supercell had built out over a decade, bringing together Clash of Clans, Barbarians, which, as Rob Lowe, I think one of their heads of marketing had pointed out, is one of the few recognizable characters in mobile. Putting that together with Heyday characters, putting them together with Clash Royale characters, like this was supposed to be the superpowers, bringing all these IPs together. And ultimately, I think it ended up becoming its weakness, or even more than that, it was just apathy. No one ended up giving a shit. And so instead of being the most downloaded game that Supercell has, it's going to end the year as the least downloaded game that Supercell has, even lower than Heyday. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's correct. It's lower than Heyday. And so we've been talking about this game for a little bit, but I think Supercell has a real challenge on to either shut this game down or to potentially use games as a platform. Could they incorporate this as a mode in Brawl Stars? Can Brawl Stars grow even higher? I think that's going to become really interesting when we see Clash Mini go to Clash Royale. If there's any success there, I think this is going to be the first thing lined up for Brawl Stars. But it's been a year and the game, they still haven't done a big enough update to move KPIs. It's the same as it's always been.
Yeah, I wanted to follow with the same thing, but I'm going to do a different one. But anyways, like going back to Squad Busters, I remember when we did the podcast with Matthew Emery, who was the consulting consulting wizard. That's a better one. A consulting warlock. We were talking about hyping up Supercell, me and you. And Matthew was like, guys, I don't know. We're like, yes, this game is going to make $1 billion. And I remember posting it on LinkedIn. And this had probably most traction as a LinkedIn post that I did the whole last year. I was talking about like how Supercell revenues were up 20%, how Brawl Stars revenue was up like almost 800%, Clash Royale, 100%, Heyday, Boom Beach, all up by 20%. They were killing it on the marketing front with the Hololine and Clash of Clans, Godzilla Brawl Stars, and Squad Buster was coming out like, this is the biggest comeback in mobile gaming is what Supercell is going to have in 2024. It was not the biggest comeback of 2024. It kind of turned sour towards the end. Good luck.
Well, where's Cosmic Lounge, right? I feel like Cosmic Lounge has been on a 2-year marketing campaign for their Match 3 AI
I know,
engine.
my buddy.
Where is it?
Tommy, dude. Tommy was waxing poetic about this bullshit for like 6 months, dude. Where the fuck is their game? I love Tommy, but like, Jesus, like if you're saying AI is going to help facilitate game development, and this is a puzzle game for fuck's sake, right? This is not rocket science, Like, how can you not have a game in market yet?
Yeah, Cosmic Lounge is a great example. So it's a studio that was launched by former Seriously and King Professional here in Helsinki, and they're making a puzzle game. So of course, these people, if anybody knows a puzzle game, and their angle was like, but we are going to make it with AI. It's going to be better, faster, more beautiful, like everything. And we're not jumping in on Cosmic Lounge, but using it as an example. Meanwhile, like all the Turkish studios that set up companies like year after them have already launched, scaling their games, pivoted to something else, and we don't even know what's going on there. So, and they have been like the most vocal. Like they were at our event
Istanbul,
when they were showing, they were showing it. So that kind of not harping in on Cosmic Lounge, but talking about like believing the hype of AI. I want to mention one thing. I did the AI podcast with Peter Hoyman from X Miniclip. He was doing AI. I remember I reached out to him before Istanbul. I'm like, hey, would you mind coming in and talking about how you make games with AI? And he was like, we pivoted already. And that was like last year. So that's why I was like, maybe this AI story that I'm believing in is not quite there yet.
I think it's too early.
Yeah.
I think it's too early.
You hang out with VCs too much. That's the problem, dude.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with VCs.
You're just listening to the Tower of Babel and acronym nonsense. Don't stop.
Love it. Love it.
All
Let
right,
those
Chris.
guys like stew with themselves and just like circle jerk.
All right, what's your big mess
First
up?
of all, I'm happy not to be on the primary list of this year because you guys really fucked up on Squad Busters, and I was the only voice of fucking reason at that time because that game was not monetizing in soft launch and the gameplay was super casual and they rushed that thing out, right? And all those things I said in the podcast. So I was right, you were wrong. Full stop. But I will throw out myself as a nominee because I really thought Ubisoft was going to pull it out this year. I thought they were going to execute against Star Wars and that they would execute against Assassin's Creed with quality games and good launches. And they did not. And I will never trust the French ever again
Wow,
You
the
know,
whole nation
So
through
the whole fucking country. Fuck it, dude. Those guys, they're shit. So I will never trust the French ever again to pull their head out of their collective asses.
Wow.
But anyway, my biggest fuck up this year was my
What about Roblox?
Yeah.
What about Roblox? You've been a Roblox doubter for a long time.
Yeah,
no the Roblox.
he's still doubting.
We will see. We will see.
Yeah,
let's
he's
just
still
wait.
in doubt.
Let's just wait
Yeah.
until the holiday sales come through. They've actually looked good on Yipit and M Science. Let's just see. Let's just see.
Okay. Options haven't expired yet. All right.
All right. So also it was a +1 on Squad Busters, although he wrote.
He was pro Squad Busters, man.
No.
We gotta interrogate him about this.
No, he
no.
wasn't. He wasn't.
I don't think
he's
he
just
was.
He's just nominating corrections for us.
Yeah. He's nominating.
He's dunking.
He's
dunking.
He's
on us.
dunking.
By the way,
Okay.
just,
Okay.
wait, hold on. For the record, Philip Black, this is his nomination, right? Because he's
Yeah.
the one that
Correct.
basically said, okay, just to be clear,
Yes.
this is Philip fucking up. Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I'm
so
AI.
he +1, but Adam said for himself, he wrote Marvel Rivals will be dead in a month. That's his vote for himself. My vote for what I said that wasn't great was Match Factory. And when I originally talked about Match Factory not being awesome, it was as a player because I really hate the time pressure games. And so I didn't think Match Factory at the time when I was playing it, and I think it was the very end of 2023 going into 24. It's like we're looking at a chart right now on on revenue. It's doing nice. It's doing like really, really good work. Good
It's
job.
doing great. No, hold on. I think
go
that's some
for it.
revisionism.
Okay.
If we go back to
All
that
right.
episode, I don't have the quotes off the top of my head, but we were skeptical of their launch strategy because remember, they started in the United States. It wasn't a traditional soft launch strategy. We're like, ooh, I don't know, because we had irkings of Squad Busters coming back to bite us. And not only have they blown past, whatever that strategy is, but they've continued to scale the game. Right. I mean, now it seemed to topped off about 15 million a month, which still puts you at a really great run rate. But we were also dunking on their launch strategy a little bit. And to be honest with you, who knows if they would have made more money if they did a traditional strategy, or maybe they would have made less. But it doesn't seem to have been a barrier, at least for them.
Yeah, got it. All right. So category number 3, most damage taken. And so this category could go to a company, it could go to a platform,
Business.
it could go to a genre or a business. So the 2023 winner, as happens a lot in our 2023 numbers, was Embracer, who was a repeat winner in that category. So Mishka, who is your 2024 nominee for most damage taken?
Yeah, so this was interesting. I think, by the way, you talked about naming this the Embracer category. I think it makes all the sense. Who got embraced the most?
That's
so,
funny.
So I
That's
think
good.
who got embraced the most? I was thinking about 3 companies. First, like, this is not the one, but I was thinking about Aristocrat because they kind of like pulled out of games. Like towards the end of the year, there was a fire sale. They were like, take Clarion at 1x revenue. Take all these companies. We're out. We're done. This is not anymore. But not really, because Aristocrat themselves were pulling out from businesses that weren't as nearly as successful where they are. So it's kind of stupid to name them as somebody who's taking most damage. So then it was the 2. I was thinking about Netflix because Netflix is a joke. This whole thing that is happening is just insane. That the last part that we learned was that they paid $50 million to have 3 GTA mobile games for 1 year exclusivity, after which they launched. They've launched now like 150 different games. There's hardly any tractions. They spent $3.5 billion on this gaming effort. And yes, it's mice nuts for them. But let's be honest, like when this is all said and done, they could have just bought Scopely and had like a real, mobile publisher with them. So that was my one thing. Then I'm going to go actually back to this one. This is what I'm going to nominate. It's not going to be Netflix. I think the most damage taking is Forte. I keep saying it every year. So Forte is what they call sort of a Unity for Web3 games. Now, we know that the whole market for Web3 games doesn't exist. So let's start there. We know that the company has raised $1 billion. So I think they're going to I think how much money they're making from interest, it's probably insane. They're like cash flow positive probably every year. But what happened last year was they closed down Phoenix Labs. They never even told anybody that they acquired Phoenix Labs, and kind of reading all those stories, which was just like crazy, like secrecy. You can't even talk about who owns you. And the last thing that we also learned is like pretty much every single person from Network that joined them early in the days, Neil Long, All the other guys who were like Neilong was like waving the flag of Web3. Like he's gone. He's not there. Like he's being all quiet. And the whole company is like a dead silent. So I think Forte has taken the most damage because the market they operate in, it doesn't exist. And the moves that they have made have been shady because they haven't announced it, and also really, really bad. Like acquiring the studio and then closing it down like 3 months later. Like, oh, we actually don't like dragons. Boom, closed. So Forte.
All right. Forte, Cress.
I honestly think it's an embracer again, since the
Embracer award.
They literally imploded and split up the company. But it's like, I mean, if you'll actually talk to Canterman or I think Brian from the other game
Pixels and Profits.
Thank you. They think it's like kind of the rise of the Phoenix, right? So that they're coming back. I think they're both law. But anyway, I'm going to go with Netflix. I think Netflix just absolutely just got destroyed this year. There's a lot of egg on their face, and clearly their strategy wasn't working. We're seeing all these layoffs of really senior people.
More next week on that.
Yeah, we'll figure, to figure shit out and start over, basically. So my vote is Netflix.
Adam's vote is Ubisoft, and I'm going to +1 that. Well, I put a little one in there for Apple Vision Pro, Crest, because that was
oh shit, I forgot about
right.
that.
We forgot about Apple Vision Pro.
No, you're right. Damn it.
So that's
got to be a nominee too, though.
Yeah,
they stopped production. It's over.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Laura was like really bullish about it.
Laura's got to check herself.
All right. So my vote is Ubisoft. Let me give you some stats. Just as I was looking this up, I was like, oh my God, who took the worst damage? The market cap dropped 85% from 2021 to 2025 for Ubisoft. First half earnings for 2024, they were down 20% versus the same time a year prior. The share value throughout 2024, Ubisoft stock experienced a significant decline, losing 50% of its value. And then there is the potential buyout discussions. And so remember that there was all of these reports that, Tencent and the family were contemplating a buyout of Ubisoft to stabilize it, to take it private. So I just think from a staple company or industry to lose that much market cap, 85% drop from 2021 to 2025, like, oh my God, that feels like a lot. Yeah. So that's my vote. Phil, what's yours?
I'm actually going to say venture capital. I think venture capital ends up with a lot of egg on their face, particularly with AAA. Eric, it's something you've been talking about forever, which is that it takes so much capital to get these AAA games across the finish line that it's really not just a venture enterprise. I mean, it's capital intensive, so you think it would be a venture enterprise, but people aren't ready to commit for what that means in the long run. And so I think on that hand, it seems like bad on paper. And not only that, like with Supervive and Spectre Divide, which we're going to be talking about later on, those are both VC-backed studios that failed this year, I think in a really big and spectacular way. And when I look at the winners, it's all these weird Steam companies. Pocket Pair, we'll be talking about later, the developers of Palworld, was a 50-person studio. We're going to talk about Probably Monsters later, which is another studio that was venture-backed and got hundreds of millions of dollars with nothing to show. It's just like nothing.
And Paleo just died, right?
Oh,
yep.
Paleo.
Paleo died. And
everyone,
so I think this is a new concept, is having venture in AAA studios, and I don't think it's working out. And so I think on one hand, I think you take the L for AAA this year for venture capital. Web3 is still shit. And when I see venture studios say, oh, well, we're up on our Web3 stuff because you did weird token shenanigans. I mean, all these venture studios love to tell you that they're in it for the long run, founder first, all this bullshit. And yet you're doing all this financial arbitrage on tokens. Like, I would not be proud of that. That would not be something I'd be telling people about. No. I thought you were supposed to be for the long run, building real value, all this shit. So if you're coming out and telling me you're up on Web3 because you're arbitraging tokens and not actually taking equity and just taking token deals instead, Bitcrest, some other VCs that have been doing this, I don't think that's anything to be proud of.
Unfortunately, no one is really reporting the accurate values of their investments. So they'll never be called on it. Right. And so that's what sucks about venture is it's such a long term and so obscured by bullshit. I think venture did take it on the chin this year, but no one's ever going to know. You know what I mean? So not officially, no one's going to report on it. Right. But you're totally right. Venture is fucked in this space right now. Maybe they don't even know it. Right.
This is a great point, Phil. Like I might be like I support your venture capital point, because what happened in the crazy growth stage of COVID lockdowns is that all these VC firms raised really big funds, and they were super spreading like this funding. Like everybody and their mother was getting like, hey, I got funded. Like let's start there. Like everybody was getting funded.
Case in point.
Case in point. And so you have new funds. You have massive these funds. There were new gaming focused funds, but now you're in a situation where the valuations are down. Like Clarium is a great example. Like even when you sell this company that makes $1 billion, like what's your return if it's like a fraction of what a SaaS company valuation would be? The market is not growing. You said like a couple of percentages here and there. Yeah, but it was growing 20%. So you can't even bank on growth. And then, you end up in a situation where you're sitting on a lot of money. And I think these we might be in a situation where there will be a question like, do we need actually gaming VCs? Like a VC that is focused, like a fund that is 100 million, 150 million, 600 million, or whatever these funds are size. Like, do we actually need a gaming VC, or can it be an arm of, a generalist investor? So I think, it's going to be really challenging, especially as they're going to LPs and showing how much markup, how much valuation has grown of the companies. Are they able to even return the investment? That's going to be tough for venture capital, just because they got greedy during the lockdown times.
All right. So number 4 is the most disappointing game. So the 2023 winner was Starfield from Bethesda.
I'm going to throw out there Concord, because even though the anticipation was not high, the absolute train wreck that it was unprecedented from, a first party type experience that I can remember anyway.
Yeah.
So
Let me +1 that and give some stats while we're on that, because I also second the nomination for Concord. So it was developed by Firewalk Studios, published by Sony, and it was pretty anticipated. So it released in August. 2 weeks later, they shut it down. I don't think I've ever seen a game shut down so soon after launch. Reportedly, it was $200 to $400 million in development to make the game. Some people say low on the lower end, some people say on the higher end. Still, that is a AAA game. That is a big fail. So Phil, you'll love this. Peak concurrent players on Steam was below 700. And the total sales estimate was around 25,000 copies for, I think it was a $40 US retail game. I also hate to pick on the marketing, but what I remember when I saw some of the trailers was,
no,
oh
you
my
don't.
God.
You love to pick on the marketing. Go for it,
That's
please.
true. I do
Just
love to pick on the marketing.
Operate on the patient. Let's go.
I remember seeing the marketing of like, oh my God, why would you do retro, like sci-fi Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff? With who could possibly want this kind of marketing? It didn't feel like it appealed to anyone. Was not on trend, was not, it looked like a ripoff of Guardian of the Galaxy in all of the bad ways. So Concord is my nomination. So let's go back to... yes?
Hold on. I actually don't think you're doing enough to justify both of your nominations in terms of disappointment, because remember, there were some leaked Sony documents that this was going to be like their next big franchise. They had hype internally about this too. Like they disappointed themselves. Like they were on the hype train up until the absolute failure. Like I was shocked to see how much they were putting behind it just internally. Someone must have been championing it.
Wasn't it 7 or 8 years of development? It was their swing at the plate for live service. And, I remember we had a podcast with Adam. This was the toxic positivity podcast where it was like they were completely deluding themselves, and no one was. It's kind of the same thing with, I'm surprised actually, what's the name of that game that killed the Justice League? Suicide Squad. Killed the Justice League was another one that we were talking about being on the list, where no one had the balls to like look at themselves in the face and say, this isn't working. We need to do something different. It's sunk cost fallacy, where everyone's just like, sunk cost fallacy, we got to keep pouring money into it rather than like pull the ripcord and get out. Right, Phil? So I think that's kind of, all right. So Mishka.
Okay, so I was between 2 of these mobile games. Of course, Squadbusters, say no more. The game is a shark fin. Looks like a little bit going up the revenue again. But, Phil is showing these 2 games in the graph. So there's Squadbusters and Activision's Call of Duty Warzone. And I think both of these games had very high expectations. Like on Activision's part, this was supposed to be the game that takes the spot of Call of Duty Mobile. No more sharing dineros with the Chinese. Like, this game is done out of like 7 or 8 Activision studios. It's phenomenal. It's, you know, it's homemade. It has everything you would expect. And also it has the name of Warzone behind it, which is like what, the biggest Call of Duty game. And then we had Squad Busters. That was Supercell's first game to launch since 2018. And they were on, as I, you know, explained before, they were on fire before that. Like, they really nailed the live ops. Things are going great. Marketing was kicking ass. And now Squad Busters was supposed to be the cherry on top for 2024. So I'm kind of mixed. I would say my vote goes to Squad Busters on this case, because I was so hyped about it and I was so wrong about it. With Warzone, I kind of saw what happened with Krafton when they released the PUBG to rival the other PUBG Mobile, and they got crushed by Tencent. Like, good try, boys. And I think the same happened again. It was a counter punch from hell, straight knockout. It was like a Conor McGregor winning his championship, first punch knockout. So I think I kind of expected it, so I'll put it on Squad Busters.
Okay. Let's do Adam's really quick. His vote is Supervive. And so he read this as, you know, what is the most disappointing game? He had high hopes for this pre-launch, and then it flopped, which is why he picked Supervive or Spectre Divide over Concord. So this was his answer. I'm sad for these folks. These are a bunch of ex-League of Legends Riot folks, and I'm sad for them. But I think, as we talk about many times, MOBA struggle in the West. So Phil,
Let's see how it does in China. Remember, NetEase has got
Yeah,
publishing rights. So
yeah.
let's see. 80% of League revenue, apparently from the Eastern region. Mind blowing. That would be my award for like fact of the year if that was a category.
Believe that. By the way, it still blows my mind that fact was out there and no one shared it with me
Changed
after
my
all these
worldview.
years. Dude, I've been talking shit about MOBAs for how long, and no one mentioned the fact that like 90% of the revenue is fucking in Asia, you know?
Well, hold on. Some Riot employees have disputed this,
Yes,
just to be clear.
yeah,
so
They
little
do.
earmarks.
They're just like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Like, that's not acceptable. Refuting. All right, moving on.
So for my most disappointing game, I put Spectre Divide. This game is not hanging on by a thread. It is dead. It is done.
Oh no.
We're talking about hundreds of concurrent players, like not enough to even sustain matchmaking at this point. And if you remember, this was Mountaintop Studios. Lee Horn was one of the game directors who was one of the major driving forces of Apex Legends' monetization. And he's a former employee at Riot as well. Really, really smart and talented guy. And it just bombed. This was a tactical shooter. I thought there was something to this game in terms of having a thesis. I thought it was well-rounded with the rule of thirds, 33% old, 33% improved, 33% innovative, smart people behind it, venture backing. They had some influencer marketing. Remember, Shroud was on top of this game. It was Shroud's game. It's quickly how fast people forget about that.
Oh.
And it is not just gone, it is dead. It is over for this game. And one of the things we were talking about in our holiday special is like, if you're Mountaintop Games, or you're an investor, what do you do? So you just spent 3 years, 4 years of your whole life building this game, and it didn't even survive, 3 months. It was done within the first month. What do you do next?
I can tell you, you sell Acquihire. That's what happens. Like, the same thing happened to the Polya.
Should I put that in your predictions category for Mountaintop Games?
Mountaintop, what's the other one? Like, it's not going to be good for the VCs because they put in like, what, 100 million, 80 million into this company. They're not going to get anything back. So neither will the team, though, in the case of Acquihire. But it's a great team, as Jen said. So they gave it a go. They made a game that was impressive. It didn't succeed. Now they go back to work. That's it.
All right. So keeping moving. Oh, I'll also like drop a little bomb of X Defiant in here as
X
another.
Defiant. X gonna give it to you. Not at all.
As another disappointment. All right, keeping it moving. Mice Nuts. So this is the small game that we like to play. So this is like a really great creative game, not a big revenue winner. The Mice Nuts game in 2023 winner was Pikmin 4. Phil, what do you got for their 2024?
All in Whole, baby. All in Whole
What the fuck is this?
hidden gem. This is a game by Homa, our French publisher. It started as Attack Hole, which was a game that exploded as a hyper-casual IP, and they ended up running, I would argue, one of the best implementations of the hybrid casual playbook. So going out with hyper-casual, finding something that resonates and ultimately has marketability, and then adding all of the casual or more mid-core elements onto that title and relaunching it under a new IP. And that's
Okay.
what they did with Hole and All, and they absolutely killed it. The game is fantastic. It's a ton of fun to play. They completely took everything that they needed to out of the Saga playbook in terms of extending win streaks, of having things like Lava Quest and Episode Race. They absolutely nailed it. I think the game's doing okay. I mean, we don't know what ad revenue is, but the fact they got this out there, I think, is a testament to them and their transformation to a hybrid casual publisher. And I'm still playing to this day. I love the game. I think it's great. It is mice nuts, however, in the grand scheme of things.
All right. Mishka, what do you got?
Well, that was shilling because I think Phil talked about his client over here. So
No, this is a genuine love. I have no more financial relationship with them. I was there when Attack Hole blew up, and to see this transform and finally come out and for them to nail the execution is great to see.
cool story. All right. So,
Au revoir.
so I'm going to actually use the same game that I talked about as the biggest disappointment last year. That was Total War Pharaoh. So I like playing Total War games. And to me, it was it was buggy. It was really short. It was a disaster. And even the publisher had to refund the game and do a public apology. That's how bad Total War Pharaoh was in 2023. In 2024, the ratings went up and they made a lot of free changes, the DLCs. And this game actually picked up. And it's not like one of my favorite, like top 5 Total War games. This is a 20-year-old franchise. So I'll pick Total War Pharaoh as the mice nut game of 2024.
Okay.
All right. My first choice is Balatro, but I'll let Jen handle that one. I'm going to throw out there as a more of a controversial pick. I'm going to say Astrobot, because even though the game got really critical acclaim, it doesn't seem to have moved the needle for Sony this year, despite, I think it's just a mismatch of a genre on that platform. So I'm going to say Astrobot. My real pick is Balatro. Because Balatro is a ridiculous game of the year nod.
Yeah.
Like, what I don't like about it is it gives kind of hope to like the indies that like you can build like something really, really successful. But like I even question whether it was even successful. But anyway, I'll let Jen go.
Yeah. So Adam also said Balatro. I say Balatro. And so I did a little, I didn't look up the Steam numbers because obviously that's where it first launched. But on mobile, it came to mobile and it's a $10 download US on mobile. And it was only $3.3 million there. Although they did do a deal with Apple Arcade. So there's Balatro Plus where you can play that game. And something, let's see, Phil tells me that it's 34 million on Steam, according to
VG Insights.
VG Insights. So,
There's no
like that
fucking
again,
way.
like Mice Nuts, like totally in that realm isn't this a single developer, if I remember correctly? It's like one guy who made this. But one other thing I wanted to say about this game, something I've never seen before, it has 5 stars on Apple with 25,000 ratings. I've never seen like a perfect rating score, which is kind of what you see on the screen if you're following us on Spotify video or on YouTube. So well done, Balatro. All right. Number 6, most questionable move. And this could be an investment, an acquisition. It could be talent. The most questionable move winner in 2023 was Netflix. Phil, what do you got for 24?
Yeah, I got an interesting one here. This was at the beginning of the year. This was actually in January. We had news that Blizzard had canceled Project Odyssey, which is their survival crafting game. And I was still shocked when they did it then. I'm sure there's a bunch of problems inside of Blizzard in terms of allocating resources, getting new projects started, all the normal internal politics. But if you put that aside, the fact that survival crafting has been like on an absolute tear for the last 2 years, it's just this very obvious market signal that everyone keeps trying to send to major publishers. And apparently they're not picking up the phone. But like Sons of a Forest is another game that launched on Steam this year and did incredible amounts of business. Rust has been around for a really long time and is hitting all-time PSU highs in the last year. Enshrouded was another one we didn't really get a chance to talk about. Power World, we'll hear more about that later on. But that is a survival crafting game. We say Pokemon with guns, but it's a survival crafting game. Not only that, it had a recent uptick during an update and was made with only 50 people. So there's just so much. I mean, not only just picked 4 games, but I mean, there's still Ark. There's still a bunch of other survival crafting games, Valheim, which I think was 2021. I mean, this genre keeps exploding, and I keep waiting for someone to do the AAA treatment of it and to really make it mainstream and accessible, like extraction shooters have failed to do. It seems like people have backed away from that. And I keep waiting for it to happen in this genre, and it hasn't happened. And Blizzard is the perfect company to do this, right? This is what Blizzard does. They take things that have market appeal but are too rough, and they make them accessible. They strip them down to the core elements. They did this for World of Warcraft. They did this for Hearthstone. They did this on a bunch of their franchises. I thought they could have killed this one, and I'm really disappointed this got canceled. And I question whether or not those are the right move.
All right, Mishka, what do you got?
Okay. So again, this is two companies that I'm thinking here. Netflix games first. Again, it's paying what, according to my reliable source, which is Eric Kress, $50 million to get GTAs for 12 months and then parading that everywhere as a major win. Like when they launched that GTAs, like, we did it, baby. So that was like a big win for them. That was interesting. But then the other one was Squad Busters. So the Squad Busters launch as a questionable move. They did not have soft launch. Like, yeah, there's like that 30 days. No, everybody was gearing up for soft launch. They had already decided that this game is coming out. We're gonna bet the house on this, baby. Full send was the move inside of it. And this is going to be the biggest launch ever. We're going to put all of our IPs in one game and really show what's up. No need to soft launch. We're the kings of this goddamn hill. We made mobile gaming. Like, I'm just joking, but this felt like what was coming out of it. And I think that questionable move made Supercell look bad, because this is a company that is known as to be the quintessential mobile developer. They only ship hits. They're very, very strict of what gets past the gauntlet. And suddenly they threw the gauntlet to the trash and be like, let's go, baby. And I would say killing all your principles for one game is a very questionable move.
All right, Kress, what do you got?
Everything Ubisoft does. I don't think they made one successful move the entire year, right? Moving Assassins to next year, the Outlaws launch was a disaster. Keeping Skull and Bones even in market, just fucking cancel and cut that team completely. Building Rainbow Six mobile internally, are they out of their goddamn minds? They can't make games on mobile. X Defiant, NFT game launch, maintaining this leader. The biggest thing is that they are maintaining leadership. Like, in order for them to do a deal, the brothers need to still be in charge of this company. How much feedback do they need to understand that they do not know how to run a fucking publishing company, right? They need new leadership there, full stop, right? I don't even know how many mistakes one particular company can make. It's like, it is unprecedented. So yeah, Ubisoft, everything they do.
Good one. Adam votes for the Squad Busters launch.
Guys, we need to leave Squad Busters alone. Jesus.
I kind of +1 that.
Maybe they sweep the categories.
I want to be clear on this one, because I said this in the podcast before, is that if their goal was to go public anytime soon, they fucked it up badly with this launch. Like, cooler heads should have prevailed and realized that this game was not going to do well, and that this was going to be a bad look on them. In terms of what Mishka just said, was that they have been known to release quality games, scaling games, and this was not it. And if they want to prove to the investor base that they can build recurring hits, this is not it, right? They fucked up. They fucked up badly. And that is all on the executives at Supercell, full stop. It's not the team. It's not like the marketing people. It's the leadership that put this game out. They should have delayed it, right? They should have this made no sense if that is their goal. So anyway, yes.
All right, so mine, I agree on the Squad Busters launch for so many marketing reasons too. I think Netflix is a repeat winner probably. But so I want to throw another one in there just for diversity. All of the VC massive investments, especially in the insert big company here, the Riot people, the Blizzard people. And we kind of talked about this earlier, so I won't rehash all of it, but that's my additional vote for a nominee for the most questionable move.
Step into the future of game monetization with Xsolla, the premier partner for game developers seeking to expand their reach and revenue. Xsolla provides a robust suite of tools designed to enhance user acquisition, manage subscriptions, and streamline payment solutions worldwide. Unlock new markets and maximize profitability through their customized, secure payment architecture and dedicated support team. Xsolla, powering game developers to achieve global success.
All right, so most brilliant move, since we don't often talk about the positives, because it is us, but what was great? So the 2023 winner was Lego and Fortnite coming together. And so, Kress, this is your distraction on the podcast the entire year. So please give all of the credit to WoW right now.
Despite all the challenges that Blizzard's had over the years, I do think they executed flawlessly against this latest expansion. So that's good. There's a lot of things that are not going well at Blizzard right now, but I think World of Warcraft is not one of them. So bringing this game back to one of the best expansions they've ever made is a great accomplishment for them.
MTG Polarium acquisition is Adam's vote. My vote, I'm going to stay on the Epic train and say the Disney and Epic deal. So back in February of 24, Epic got $1.5 billion investment from Disney, 9% stake in the company. And so this is a kind of a strategic partnership. I think it was brilliant in a little bit on both sides. Number one is Disney, not needing to build their own teams, giving money to Epic getting $1.5 billion. That's pretty fun. So that's my vote for this year. Phil, what do you got?
I'm going to keep the Steam train rolling, and I would say China allowing the global version of Steam without VPN semi-legally. I still really don't know what the situation is. I think it was brilliant for the gamers of China. I really don't know what's going on inside the Chinese Politburo right now, but I mean, at least it's made gamers happy and it's grown the market significantly. Not only that, they've grown their own IP. Black Myth Wukong had a lot of success on Steam from Chinese users downloading and paying for it. So I think that's been a monumental shift. Who knows if it will continue? The one thing I keep asking is, like, now that we know this is a fact, now that we know that you can have the global version of, you can basically get distribution in China without any of the nonsense, how do you take advantage of it? Do you do your marketing in the Chinese language, in Mandarin? Do you have more Chinese-based characters? How do you exploit the fact that the CCP seems to be turning a blind eye to this? I don't think anyone's figured that out yet. And I think for an adventurous marketing team, I think this is an opportunity waiting for someone to pounce on.
Well, this was actually the most difficult category, because I was thinking a lot, like, what was the sort of a thing where I was just super impressed in 2024? And I literally just wrote this right now. And I think it's the hybrid casual pivot of many of these hyper casual publishers that were losing their asses, because IDFA essentially killed their business. We got companies like Voodoo, Tap Nation, Oma, Quali, like you name it, all these companies that have built everything, their central tech, all their skill sets around publishing certain type of games, and then pivoting and being able to now operate games that have both in-app ads and in-app purchases. And I think what we'll be seeing next year is that a lot of these hybrid casual publishers will be moving into casual gaming. Like we're seeing already Lion Studios and other publishers just crushing it in puzzle games and in all kind of new categories that we haven't seen hyper casual in. So I think this type of a pivot that looks very simple on the outset, but it was actually something that they had to do really fast, is brilliant.
How can you give credit to these fucking bottom feeders, this hyper casual bullshit that we called out years ago that was never sustainable? They were just fucking paying themselves. Like, the whole thing was bullshit to begin with. I'm not giving any credit to these guys. These guys are just trash. I don't
but
hate
the
this
pivot
shit.
is brilliant. Like, because you thought that they were dead, and it's like, nah,
But
baby.
the pivot to making
They're
real
fucking
games.
cockroaches. That's why they're
Yes.
fucking cockroaches. Fuck that bullshit. I don't
Surviving.
All right.
Surviving.
All right.
This is what makes mobile business shit, is companies like this that are making crap. Okay.
Well,
Anyway,
I play Hexasort like crazy. Like, what's wrong with that?
Best ideas are on hyper casual right now. Hole and fill. We just talked about hole and fill. It got validated with attack hole.
You talked
That's
about
an awesome mechanic.
All
the,
right.
the gate mechanic, the pin mechanic. I
Yes.
mean, we've discovered so much about gamer psychology and what they respond to.
I'll give you that. The runner gameplay and all right, fine.
Simplest. Okay, got it. All right,
Bottom.
moving on, folks. We got a couple categories still to
Bottom
go.
feeders.
All right, so this is the crushed it category. So this is both creative success and business success combined. This is, if we had like game of the year, this would be our category. 2023 was Monopoly Go.
Mhm.
What do you have for 2024? By the way, it doesn't have to be a game.
Yeah, I'm between two, because we've been so critical towards Supercell launching Squad Busters. We have to also give them a lot of props on Brawl Stars, because that game has had a phenomenal success on all the elements, like from the marketing to actual revenue to gameplay changes to economy. Like, everything they've done has been really great, and they fixed a lot of things. And then I was looking at another one, and that is TikTok. And TikTok has been sensational in the past years. Like, the chart here that I was looking at is the TikTok's in-app purchase revenue, and it's just hockey sticking. It's just going up like crazy. So to me, I would say, shit, it's a hard Brawl Stars or TikTok.
No, TikTok is not even a gaming company. I don't think it should. I agree with you.
So
I think it's amazing.
I'll go then Brawl Stars, but I think TikTok really crushed it as a platform. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we'll see if they're still around in a couple weeks. All right,
Or
Chris, what do you
if
got?
they get crushed.
I want to give another nod to Activision with Call of Duty. I mean, I think the Call of Duty launch was phenomenal this year, and they did a really good job of executing. Plus, it's Black Ops. Honestly, I think it probably helped Sony more than it did Microsoft, but
That's funny.
Overall, I think like Call of Duty launch was executed extremely well on the AAA side.
What do you make of that $700 million budget we found out about this week, though?
See, now those numbers don't make a lot of sense to me. I'll be honest, because my understanding is that they were capped in the sense that they didn't need more money. They didn't want more money to build these games. And so I'm thinking that some of those numbers include a lot of the re-engine working that was going on across the different studios. And so
well, yeah, you can amortize it against Call of Duty Warzone Mobile, though.
Oh, was it a franchise number? Was that maybe if you think about mobile and Warzone and...
I'm going to look into that for next week, because the numbers that I saw were like 700 million or something for one game. My understanding is that they were capping spend because they didn't want more resources. They didn't want more bodies. And so some of it doesn't compute. So I'll look at it and see if I can tease it out.
All right. So Call of Duty. Phil, what do you got?
I think it's not even close, to be honest with you. And again, I'm going towards early January. We're pulling it all the way back for the year. But to me, it's Pal World. I think not only from a business perspective, but also from a creative perspective, also just what it means for the industry. I mean, we know Pocket Pair's story by now. They had failed a bunch of different times. Remember the story about the USB drive? They lost a bunch of files. I think someone lost the USB drive. They didn't take a bunch of venture capital. It was a very small team. They came out of nowhere. I don't say nowhere. If you remember, they had the trailer that was Pokemon almost enslaved making guns that everyone just kind of turned their heads. And it became this tagline, oh, Pokemon with guns. And everyone really was captivated by that. But I think what's been less understood is how they've really transformed the survival crafting genre, because the Pokemon themselves, I think, do a lot for survival crafting, right? Because each of the Pokemon have their own tasks. And so now it becomes really accessible to have this meta collection game. So I'm going to get this Pokemon who's going to do this thing. As I build my shelter, this Pokemon's going to do this other thing. So I think they've actually done a lot to advance their survival crafting genre. And I actually think there's kind of a hidden fit here between survival crafting and a lot of the meta collection we see with Pokemon-like games. But at the end of the day, they have not only generated a shit ton of money. Video Game Insights has them at 450 million. And again, that's just for Steam. And so I'm assuming you combine all these things together, they've made a heap ton, probably $1 billion worth of revenue. I'm very interested to see if they scale. I think 50 head count was what I had heard. I'll see if they have more. They just released an update. For Power World, and PSU is back up again. So imagine if they can get the content pumping a little bit more, then I think they could have a real live service game. Even if they're not monetizing on IP, they still have MTX, but they can still have, I think, a real live service here. This could be a forever franchise.
All right, good one. Adam votes for
Eric. No, I want to see this. He's got his head shaking. Let's Debbie Downer over here. Come on, let's bring the...
They're going to get sued into oblivion, dude. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that is a real issue.
By the way, the fact that you can't mention Pokemon like 80 times every time you mention Pal World, like that's kind of an indication of where they're at in this world. Like when you copy something so gratuitously, like of course success may follow, but that is not going to last long. So we'll see.
Got it. All right. So Adam has Black Myth Wukong. That's a good one. Just, I think the idea of the first Chinese AAA game to have success in the West. That's a big deal. So I was also +1ing a little bit of Mishka's Brawl Stars. I don't think I've ever seen a turnaround story like this in mobile. And the real world impact of these collaborations, I think they brought the idea of collaborations to mobile to life, where they did the Godzilla collaboration. And next thing you know, the toys are selling. They're on fire. I've never seen a Godzilla toy sell. And that is probably due to this game. And so just the chart that we're showing here is just the turnaround story on revenue and downloads. Just the year prior was like trugging along. And then all of a sudden, in the beginning of 24, they huge spike. So I'm going to give a different answer. And it's AppLovin is going to be my official nomination. So a couple things about AppLovin. And I know that we all feel really, really gross about kind of how UA works, but listen to this company. By the end of 24, AppLovin's market cap exceeded 100 billion. Q3 of 24, AppLovin reported 1.2 billion, marking a almost 40% increase year over year in their revenue. Holy shit. The company achieved a net income of 434 million in the same quarter, representing a 300% increase from the previous year, and a net margin of 36%. I mean, these are numbers, Crest. This is like your Christmas here to hear these kinds of numbers. AppLovin stock surged 740% in 2024, positioning it among the top performing stocks in the Russell 1000. And then in November of 24, they were added to the NASDAQ 100. Like, can you crush it more than that as a company? Like, I don't know, Cref, this is your world, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you're the only place to advertise certain genres of games, like, this is what happens, right? These guys are fucking ruthless, dude. Gangsters, dude.
Gangsters.
Like, absolute gangsters. They deserve every kudo that they can get. And
Right.
I, for a time, was like, well, anyway, I still think they have they are crushing.
Or crushing
Absolutely crushing.
Okay. We got two more categories. Worst layoffs, 2023. The winner of the worst layoffs was Embracer, sadly. Cress, what do you got for 24?
I'm going to throw Microsoft under the bus on this one. I mean, I think the acquisition of Activision was the worst thing to happen to this industry in a long, long time. It's going to have long-term ramifications, but they did between 2,000 and 3,000 layoffs, I would estimate, based upon what they've said and based upon what makes sense in terms of attrition.
Yeah, we hate this category. And sadly, I think I have to give it by the numbers to Embracer again. So on my research, they laid off probably the most of any company in the industry in 24 at 4,500-ish, which was a 27% reduction in its workforce. They affected a bunch of studios, including Crystal Dynamics. Is it Eidos? How do you say Eidos?
Eidos. Yeah.
Eidos? Gearbox, Adios. Okay, yes. Adios, everybody. The restructuring led to cancellation of 80 games, and Deus Ex was shut down, which I think many people were sad about.
This is the last year we're doing this probably because we are over the crazy layoffs. Like, this is something that we had to talk about when tens of thousands of people are getting laid off. So we kind of have to
it's worse this year.
kick the companies that are laying them off with this golden twig of like, hey guys. And my golden twig for this shitty move goes actually to Riot. So they laid off about 530 employees, and they had this amazing message from the CEO, which shout out goes naturally to Riot Comms. He got a lot of kudos for that. The reasoning behind it, that they got too bloated, et cetera, et cetera. It was really good. But then the news about Arcane started coming and so forth. So in the end, the reason for these layoffs seems to be hubris that the company has had. It wasn't per se a business reason. It was just like they're chasing all these different things. They're, spending $250,000 on a cartoon. They had like multiple forever projects, like this fighting game that has been in development for 10 years, because it was a company that they acquired that was already making a fighting game. Like, I remember this. I lived in the US back then. It was like San Mateo based. So that's
what's the TAM? What is the fucking TAM of a fighting game? For fuck's
exactly.
sakes.
Yeah. But just developing this type of a game for 10 years. And of course, Riot Comms is AAA level, like peak of the peak. Like, they did great message for the CEO. But what's left from it is that this company has a very high level of hubris, and kind of reminds me of the epic layoffs in 2023. Is like, the business reason is not quite there. The reasoning is just you're doing too many things, and you're doing them too inefficiently, and the employees are paying for it. So hence, I'm picking Riot.
Yeah, they did treat the employees well.
Very well.
Which was nice.
I'm just saying, like, it didn't have to go there. Like, you don't have to develop a fighting game for 10 years. Like, let's just start. Oh, you do a cartoon for like $500 million.
Phil, what do you got? Are you plus one-ing that?
I'm plus one-ing the Riot. And the thing, I've been learning a lot about Arcane, by the way. I don't think that $250 million number that was quoted by Variety actually covers the full budget as we understood it. There's a lot more internal strife about that project, as I understand it as well. And it was a huge opportunity cost for the development team to get everything in motion. So there's a bunch of stuff on Arcane that I love to follow up on. The other thing I would love to say for the Arcane defenders out there is good luck paying someone in brand equity. I've never seen an employee get paid in brand equity. And there is such thing as opportunity cost. You go out and you spend $300 million on something or $250 million on something. That's things you can't spend elsewhere. You want to allocate your capital to the highest value return so that you can continue to grow and not lay off employees. And people need to understand that there are constraints.
Exactly.
The last category number 10, a new category. And Mishka, I'm going to just shake my head. It's called the Limping Donkey. It's a unicorn that's done jack all.
This is like much better. I like this one a lot.
So this is most likely going to take the place of the layoffs. So they're kind of like drawing into this. Is actually, I will give props for this to Phil. Like, he sent me this meme on Instagram of like funny, like new jargons for business. And one of them was limping donkey. And we laughed so hard. We're like, this is a new twig category. So this is essentially a unicorn that ain't that much of a unicorn no more. So
All
Phil,
right. So
take it
Phil,
To me, far and away, it's probably Monsters. So if you remember, this was founded in 2016. I think it was the former CEO of Bungie. They haven't released a game in over 8 years. They raised, I think, 250 million in their Series A. They launched 3 studios simultaneously. 3 studios simultaneously. And, you know, to go back to a Scopely parable for a second, I remember when we were at Scopely, we had one developer that was working on WWE Champions. And it's so painful to scout developers and assign them to go through all the rigmarole. They're like, okay, we'll just put another game with them. We'll put Breaking Bad. And I would say one of the things that I think Javier and Walter, and I really hope there is like a debrief coming out of, you know, them selling where the statute of limitations have evaporated. But one of the things that I think was really valuable at Scopely is like lessons that were learned in blood were never forgotten. And I think they really figured out then and there that having multiple studios or having one developer develop multiple games is not viable because first of all, they haven't done it before. It's one problem. And I think the other problem is that there's a ton of genre expertise that comes with each genre. And that extends to the technical piece too, right? It's not just the game design piece. It's like, oh shit, to run a 4X game, we need server engineers. Is that there's a lot of stress on the servers. How are your server engineers? Do you need server engineers for WWE Champions? And so I think I think Scopely has softened up on that lesson, but they haven't forgotten it. And so to come out of the door swinging with 3 different studios and 250 million in capital is a recipe for disaster. Now, if you remember, they sold Firewalk, one of their studios, to Sony, which is the Concord disaster. I think that another project has got canceled. So they're kind of just down to 1 now, I think. Someone please affirm if I'm wrong, but $250 million, 3 studios and nothing to show for it is a limping donkey if there ever was one.
Venture capital at its finest. Venture capital at its finest.
Yes, that PowerPoint deck is fire. That's so few companies that I'm thinking about here. Improbable always has to be on
that's
the
a good
list.
one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Always
yeah.
limping.
Let's go, baby. So Forte, we already talked about it, but let's put in a game publisher, Wildlife. So
Yeah.
this is the Brazilian company, got a huge investment, $1 billion valuation by Benchmark Capital. Like, I think Benchmark Capital, probably the best investor in my humble opinion out there. Like, they're so smart, so good. Like everything that they do is, and the people that work there, amazing fund. They invested in this company. And what has Wildlife done since then? They have not done much. They have done a bunch of rounds. They got bamboozled by the Israelis with the publishing out of Tel Aviv. That was a funny story that hopefully somebody sometimes tells. Then they moved into this model where they find like these super creatives, pay them a big chunk of cash. Like we're talking about 7 figures to leave a company, to establish a studio, and just focus on creating something in the city they live. Like the person who made Merge Dragons is building a studio of like 50 people in San Francisco. Some of the seriously Supercell people are building a game here. And then they have like a bunch of these studios around the world that was their thesis. Again, none of that has panned out. So does the company still have the valuation? Is it a limping donkey? Could be.
Okay, Chris, what do you got?
I'm going with Niantic because Niantic had a big restructuring early last year that was supposedly like restarting and re-looking at what they're supposedly going to be doing. And we have heard fuck and all. And so they obviously are a huge company and continue to be amazingly successful. Don't get me wrong with Pokemon Go, but what is the next chapter on this in this company? So.
Got it. Adam votes for Forte and probably a bunch of other Web3 companies he can't name. I'm going to throw in Netflix because I feel like it's a little bit of a unicorn in the game industry. You know, the loss of the GTA, the closure of the AAA studio in LA, new management's doing all of this big rig structure. You know, pour one out for Leanne Loam, who was the head of third-party games there, who is now gone, entering this year. So
just had a podcast where she was like talking about like sticking with it to companies. Like I remember one of the, first of all, she's really compelling when she speaks on the podcast. And everyone has really good things to say about her. And she's quite this podcast about like, I promise you companies just stick with it. It's really hard to build this. If you stick with it, the fruits will come. And like 2 weeks later, it was like the pink slip.
She gets fired.
Oh, that's awful. It's awful.
That is bad look.
It's a bad look for Netflix. She is lovely and amazing. And I only wish the best for her and hope she lands
she's probably
somewhere.
the one that did the GTA deal, right? Like that's her business, right? We've been criticizing that for 6 months. Like it's like
potentially.
Yeah, I mean, why is that part of your strategy to like create PR moves. I mean, it's so.
We gotta talk about Netflix next week. I think
Yeah.
Jen, you had talked about Squid Games. I spent a lot more time with the Squid Games experiment. I actually think it's the start of a new strategy at Netflix Games, this Squid Games title, and I think it deserves more attention.
All right. So just to wrap up, as a reminder, so this is next steps. We threw out a bunch of nominees. Mishka, we're going to have to talk about doing another voting forms, put it in the show notes, put it in the newsletter, put it in the Slack. And then maybe by next week or the week after, we will come back to you with how you all voted on the Golden Twigs for 2024. Closing that out. All right, everyone. See you next week.
See ya.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you'd subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. Those stars and likes, while a small action on your part, mean a lot to us and help to grow the show. More importantly, are you a member of the Deconstructor of Fun Slack group? If you have 5 years or more of games industry experience, go to deconstructoroffun.com/Slack and apply to join. Join the games industry best professional community filled with peers always willing to lend a hand